The diamond necklace sat in my palm like a judgment. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The coffee was still hot when I opened the velvet box for the last time. 40 years. That's what the necklace represented. 40 years of marriage, commissioned 6 months ago from the same jeweler who'd made Catherine's engagement ring in 1984. 3 carats, platinum setting, each stone representing a decade we built together. I'd planned to give it to her tonight, at the anniversary party our daughter was hosting. Instead, I sat in my home office at dawn, turning the box in my calloused hands. These hands had framed houses in the Texas heat when we were starting out, had held our newborn daughter while Catherine recovered, had built Richardson and Associates construction from a pickup truck and a dream into the largest residential contractor in 3 counties. Catherine used to say I was too sentimental, that I held on to things, memories, traditions, the old ways, longer than I should. Maybe she was right. The house was quiet. Catherine was still asleep upstairs in what used to be our bedroom. Had been sleeping in the guest room for 3 months now, since the night I'd suggested maybe we should talk about how distant we'd become. You're always working, she'd said. When you're not working, you're thinking about work. I'm lonely, Robert. She was right about that too. I'd spent 40 years building, providing, making sure she never wanted for anything. Somewhere in all that building, I'd stopped noticing when she stopped smiling. My phone buzzed. A text from my daughter Sarah. Everything's set for tonight. The Manor at 7. Don't be late, Dad. This is important. Sarah had insisted on throwing the party. Big event, she'd said. Celebrate the milestone. She'd invited 100 people. Family, friends, business associates. People from the country club Catherine had joined 5 years ago while I was expanding the company into Austin. I'd agreed because Sarah wanted it. Because 40 years deserved marking. Because some part of me hoped the celebration might remind Catherine and me of what we built together. I put on my gray suit, the same one I wore to closings, to client dinners, to every occasion that required showing respect. Catherine used to love this suit. Said it made me look distinguished. Now she said it made me look old. I was 73. Old came with the territory. The Manor was the finest venue in town, all crystal chandeliers and polished floors. Sarah had decorated with photographs. Our wedding, Catherine pregnant with Sarah, the two of us breaking ground on our first major development. 40 years in pictures. I arrived early. Sarah was directing caterers, her husband Mark handling the bar setup. She hugged me, then stepped back to look at my suit. Classic Dad, she said, smiling. Mom's in the dressing room. She wanted to make an entrance. Catherine appeared at 7:30, and the room noticed. She wore a silver gown I'd never seen, her hair styled professionally, makeup perfect. At 68, she was still beautiful. That hadn't changed. What had changed was the way she looked past me to scan the crowd. You look lovely, I said. Thank you. She accepted a champagne flute from a passing waiter. Try to mingle tonight, Robert. Don't spend the whole evening talking about foundation pours and lumber prices. She moved into the crowd before I could respond. The evening unfolded like these events always did. People congratulated us, shared stories, toasted to 40 years. I stood beside Catherine for the photographs, her smile bright and practiced, my hand on her waist feeling like a formality. Then he arrived, Daniel Mercer. I recognized him from Catherine's college photographs, though he'd aged, silver hair, expensive suit, the look of money that came from inheritance rather than work. Catherine had dated him before me, seriously enough that I'd heard his name in stories over the years. Catherine invited him, Sarah whispered to me. Old friend from the club. I didn't realize who he was until tonight. I watched Catherine's face when she saw him. The smile changed, became real, unguarded, the way she used to smile at me. They talked by the bar, laughed. She touched his arm in a way she hadn't touched mine in years. The band started playing. Old standards, the kind Catherine and I used to dance to when we were young and couldn't afford much beyond each other's company. Daniel extended his hand. Catherine took it. They moved to the dance floor, the floor where, theoretically, she and I should have been sharing our anniversary dance. Instead, I stood by the wall with a glass of water, watching my wife glow in another man's arms. Sarah appeared beside me. Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't know she'd. It's fine. My voice came out steady. She's enjoying herself. But it wasn't fine. The necklace felt heavy in my jacket pocket. 3 carats, 40 years, every sacrifice and every hour I'd worked to build a life that would make her proud. She was laughing now. Daniel spun her, and her dress caught the light, and she looked happier than I'd seen her in a decade. Mark touched my shoulder. Want me to say something to her? No. I set down my water glass with quiet precision. This is her party too. Let her enjoy it. I stayed through the toasts, through the cake cutting, through the well wishes and congratulations. I smiled for photographs. I thanked people for coming. I played the role of the happily married man celebrating a milestone. And when Catherine and Daniel stepped outside to the terrace, still talking like old friends, or maybe something more, I went to the men's room and stared at my reflection. Gray suit, calloused hands, lines on my face from 40 years of sun and work and building things that lasted. In my pocket, the necklace that was supposed to mean everything. I pulled out my phone and called my attorney. James, I said, I need to talk about the house. The real one. The lake house. The one in Catherine's name. Because there were things my wife didn't know. Things I'd never needed her to know, because I'd trusted her with everything. That was about to change. I left the party at 10. Catherine was still on the terrace with Daniel, their heads bent close over wine glasses that caught the moonlight. She didn't notice me go. Sarah caught me at the door. Dad, where are you going? Tired, sweetheart. It was a lovely party. But you haven't given Mom her gift yet. I touched the necklace box in my pocket. Tomorrow. Let her enjoy her evening. I drove home through empty streets, past the subdivisions I'd built. Oakmont, Riverside Estates, the Highlands development that had won architectural awards. Houses where families lived, where children grew up, where people built memories. I'd built them all, but I'd forgotten to build a home for myself. The lake house sat an hour outside town, hidden at the end of a private road on 80 acres of waterfront property. Catherine thought we'd bought it together 15 years ago, a vacation retreat, somewhere to escape the summer heat. She didn't know I'd purchased the land 25 years ago, before property values exploded. Didn't know I'd paid cash from an early commercial contract, kept it in my name only, then later transferred the house, but not the land, to her name as an anniversary gift. A gift I could revoke. At home, I pulled the property files from my office safe. The original deed, the transfer documents, the land survey. All legal, all documented, all showing exactly what belonged to home. The house was Catherine's. The 80 acres underneath it, and the road access, were mine. I'd never thought about it before. Never needed to. The lake house was ours, a place we'd shared, where we'd celebrated anniversaries, where I'd imagined we'd retire together. But watching her dance with Daniel tonight, seeing that light in her eyes that used to be for me, something had shifted. I wasn't angry. That would have been simpler. I was something worse. I was done. My phone rang at 11. Catherine. Robert? Where did you go? Home. I was tired. You left without saying goodbye. A pause. People noticed. People noticed you dancing with your ex-boyfriend at our anniversary party, Catherine. I think we're past worrying about appearances. Silence. Then, defensive. Daniel is an old friend. We were just catching up. For 2 hours. While your husband stood against the wall like a piece of furniture. You're being ridiculous. You're always so jealous, so possessive. I'm possessive. The words came out quiet, which made them cut deeper. I've given you 40 years, Catherine. 40 years of working myself to exhaustion so you could have everything you wanted. The house, the club membership, the cars, the vacations. I built an empire and handed you the keys. And tonight, at our anniversary, you couldn't spare me a single dance. You don't understand. You're right. I don't. So help me understand. Are you having an affair with him? No. Her voice rose. God, Robert, not everything is some dramatic betrayal. Daniel and I are friends. That's all. But yes, he listens when I talk. He's interested in my life, my thoughts, my feelings. He doesn't just grunt at me over coffee while reading construction reports. Each word was designed to wound, and they did. I see, I said. Robert, don't do this. Don't make tonight into something it wasn't. I'm going to bed. We'll talk tomorrow. I hung up before she could respond. Sleep didn't come. I lay in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, 40 years of memories playing like a film reel. Catherine at 28, laughing in hard hat at a job site. Catherine pregnant, glowing, telling me we were going to be parents. Catherine beside me at ribbon cuttings, charity galas, church services, always beside me, until somehow she wasn't anymore. When had it changed? When had I become the enemy instead of the partner? My phone buzzed at midnight. A text from a number I didn't recognize. Then a photo loaded. Catherine and Daniel on the terrace. His hand on her waist, her head on his shoulder, taken from inside the venue, through the glass. The message, thought you should know what everyone else saw tonight. A friend. I stared at the photo for a long time. Then I forwarded it to James, my attorney, with a message, need to discuss property division options. Monday morning, Catherine came home at 1 a.m. I heard her heels on the stairs, the guest room door opening. Robert, we need to talk. It's late. I'm not having an affair. She stood in the doorway, still in her silver dress. But I'm not happy. Haven't been for years. You're married to your business. I'm just here. Decorative. A trophy wife for the self-made man. That's not fair, isn't it? When's the last time you asked about my day? My interests? When's the last time you saw me as anything other than someone to provide for? I sat up. I've spent 40 years providing because I love you. Because I wanted you to have security, comfort, a good life. I wanted a partner, Robert, not a provider. Daniel makes me feel seen. There it was. The truth under all the justifications. Then maybe you should be with Daniel. Her face went pale. I didn't mean the lake house, I said. You love it there. Consider it yours. Full ownership. My anniversary gift to you. She blinked. What? You want freedom to find yourself, to be seen, to have whatever it is Daniel offers. Take the lake house. Live there. Be happy. Robert, you're being irrational. I'm being clear for the first time in months. I stood up, pulled the necklace box from my suit jacket. This was your gift. 40 years, 3 carats, everything I thought we built together. But you're right. I don't see you. I see who I thought you were. Who we were? That woman doesn't exist anymore. I handed her the box. She opened it, and even in the dim light, the diamonds caught fire. It's beautiful, she whispered. It was supposed to be. Now it's just expensive. I moved past her toward the door. Take the weekend at the lake house. Think about what you want. I'll do the same. Where are you going? The office. I've got foundation inspections Monday morning. Because that's who I was. Who I'd always been. The man who built things, who showed up, who did the work even when everything was falling apart. Catherine was still holding the necklace when I left. Monday morning, I met James at his office at 7 a.m. The land under the lake house, I said. What are my options? James pulled up the property records on his computer. You own 80 acres. The house sits on approximately 2 acres. Access road crosses your property. Utilities, water, electric, septic, all on your land. He looked up. She can't access the house without crossing your property. Can't maintain utilities without your cooperation. Technically, you could cut her off completely. I don't want to be cruel. Then what do you want? I thought about Catherine's face on Saturday night. The light in her eyes when Daniel spun her on the dance floor. The absence of that light when she looked at me. I want honesty, I said finally. Real conversation. I want to understand if there's anything left to save, or if we're just pretending because 40 years feels too important to waste. That's not a legal question. No, but the property is leverage for the conversation. I leaned back. Draft a letter. Explain that while the house is hers, the land and access are mine. That I'm willing to negotiate an easement and utility arrangement, but only after we have an honest discussion about our marriage. No lawyers present. Just us. James made notes. And if she refuses, then I know where I stand. The letter was delivered Tuesday. Catherine called Wednesday morning, her voice tight with controlled fury. You're threatening me? With the lake house. I'm asking for a conversation. An honest one. No performances, no deflection. Just you and me talking about whether this marriage has a future. This is manipulation. This is clarity, Catherine. You said I don't see you. Fine. Help me see you. Tell me what you want. But do it honestly, not through coded complaints and dances with old boyfriends. Silence. Then, quieter, Saturday. The lake house. Noon. I'll be there. Saturday arrived cold and clear. I drove the familiar road to the lake, past the no trespassing signs on land I'd owned for 25 years. The house came into view. Timber and glass, built to my specifications, positioned to catch sunrise over the water. Catherine's Mercedes was already there. She met me on the deck, wearing jeans and a sweater. Casual, like the woman I'd married, not the polished country club version she'd become. The necklace glinted at her throat. She'd worn it. Coffee, she offered. Please. We sat at the outdoor table, mugs warming our hands, the lake stretching quiet before us. I wore the necklace because it's beautiful, Catherine said. And because I'm not cruel enough to throw your gift back in your face, even if I'm angry. I'm not trying to control you with the property, aren't you? You literally hold the ground I'm standing on. But her voice lacked heat. She sounded tired. Though I suppose I earned it. The way I acted Saturday was inexcusable. Tell me about Daniel. She looked at the lake. We reconnected at the club 6 months ago. He's widowed, lonely, charming. He listens. He asks questions. He makes me feel interesting. A pause. We're not having an affair. But I'd be lying if I said I haven't thought about it. The admission should have hurt more than it did. Instead, it felt like lancing a wound, painful but necessary. Why haven't you? Because I took vows. Because we have a daughter. Because 40 years should mean something. She turned to me. Because part of me still loves you, even though I don't know if I like you anymore. I don't know if I like who we've become either, I said. But I know I miss who we were. When we were building together, not just existing in the same space. You built, Robert. I decorated. There's a difference. You raised our daughter. You managed everything I was too busy to handle. You believed in me when I was framing houses in 100-degree heat. I sit down my coffee. Maybe I stopped showing you that mattered. Maybe I took 40 years of partnership and reduced it to provider and dependent. If so, I'm sorry. Catherine's eyes glistened. I'm sorry too. For Saturday. For making you feel small at your own anniversary party. For letting loneliness make me cruel. We sat in silence, watching sunlight move across the water. What do we do now, she asked. I don't know. But I know what I don't want. I pulled out the property documents James had prepared, an easement granting Catherine full access and utility rights, transferring the land to joint ownership. I don't want to use leverage against you. I don't want our marriage to be a negotiation. I want to try to find our way back, if there's a way to be found. She read the documents. You're giving me half the land? I'm giving us a foundation to rebuild on, if we choose to. I met her eyes. But Catherine, if you'd rather be with Daniel, if you'd rather start over at 68 and find someone who makes you feel seen, I won't fight you. 40 years means too much to end in bitterness and legal battles. We can divide things fairly, part as friends, let each other find happiness separately. Is that what you want? I want you to be happy. If that's with me, I'll spend however many years I have left learning to see you again, to be a partner instead of just a provider. If it's not, my voice caught, then I'll survive. I've built things from nothing before. Catherine reached across the table. Her hand, soft and familiar, covered my calloused fingers. I don't want to start over, she said. I want to remember how to be us. The real us, not the strangers we've become. That takes work. Both of us. I know. She squeezed my hand. Can we start here? At the lake? Spend weekends away from phones and businesses and country clubs. Just talking. Remembering. Rebuilding. I'd like that. She signed the property documents. I countersigned. Joint ownership. Equal access. A foundation that couldn't be weaponized or withdrawn. The necklace, Catherine said, touching the diamonds at her throat. It really is beautiful. Thank you. 40 years deserved marking. The next 40 deserve better. A small smile. Though we might not make it to 108. Then we make the most of whatever we get. We stayed at the lake that weekend. Talked until late, slept in the same bed. Just sleeping, but together, which felt like progress. Sunday morning, I made coffee while Catherine cooked breakfast, and it felt almost normal. Not the old normal, but a new version we were building together. The necklace stayed at her throat. Over the following months, we kept coming back to the lake. Friday evenings, sometimes long weekends. I cut back hours at the company, promoted my deputy to handle day-to-day operations. Catherine resigned from half her committees, dropped Daniel from her contact list without my asking. We took a pottery class together, learned to kayak, talked about things beyond business and logistics, dreams, regrets, what we wanted the next chapter to hold. Sarah noticed the change at Sunday dinner. You two seem different. Good different. We're remembering how to be married, Catherine said, and she reached for my hand across the table in a gesture that felt natural again. It wasn't perfect. We still argued, still had moments of frustration and misunderstanding. But we were trying, both of us, to see each other as partners instead of adversaries or strangers. 6 months after that anniversary party, we hosted a small gathering at the lake house. Just Sarah and Mark, a few close friends. No champagne toasts or speeches. Just people we loved, sharing a meal on the deck. Catherine wore the necklace and jeans. I wore a flannel shirt, no suit required. To second chances, Sarah toasted. Catherine's hand found mine. To seeing each other clearly. I looked at my wife. Really looked, the way I hadn't in years. Saw the woman who'd believed in me, who'd raised our daughter, who'd chosen at 68 to rebuild rather than run. Saw the lines around her eyes, the silver in her hair, the strength it took to admit loneliness and fight for something better. To 40 years, I said, and whatever comes next. The diamonds at her throat caught the sunset. The necklace that had sat in my palm like a judgment now rested where it belonged, not as a symbol of what I could provide, but what we'd chosen to build together. The lake stretched quiet before us. The house stood on land we owned equally, and for the first time and longer than I could remember, the silence between us felt like peace instead of distance. Catherine squeezed my hand, and I squeezed back, and that simple gesture held 40 years of history and the promise of whatever future we had left. It was enough.